All right, we get to do another episode of Technical Explanation Show, and today my guest is Walter Sparks. How you doing, Walter?
I'm good. I'm good. It's funny because I thought I just heard you say Walter Sparks. I've been called Sparks, Starkey, Darks, everything. Starks like Iron Man with an S on the end, but I may have misheard you.
Yeah, no, that yeah, I think you did. Um, hey, so where are you calling us from? Where are you located?
I'm smack dab right between Cincinnati and Dayton. I'm in Monroe, Ohio, so right above Westchester.
Okay, okay. I'm horrible at geography, by the way, but um, so we've talked a couple of times, and obviously we're here to talk about officiating, but we get to talk about officiating for two sports today. Can you tell us about the things that you officiate?
Sure. So right now, I currently officiate high school wrestling and high school football. I used to do college football. I jumped into college wrestling for second. I actually just renewed my license for college wrestling. I used to do basketball, volleyball. Those were the first things that need to go when I got married back in '06. So right now, I'm just a full-time wrestling and football official for high school.
Yeah, and so I've had a couple of shows with some uh, officials that are wrestling officials and football officials as well. And from my understanding, it sounds like um, officiating in the state, the state of officiating in football is kind of similar to wrestling. And you guys are going to like six-man teams or something next year instead of four.
Yes, they're actually doing six men right now for the playoffs. I believe it might be a state cruise. They're already doing it, but there is a shortage, not to the same extreme as wrestling, and there's a shortage across the country for referees as a whole. But there is a shortage in football as well.
Okay. And I mean, so I think they're both probably due to the same sort of thing, sort of the same things. But I mean, what do you think's going on in football? Is it anything different than wrestling
I
as to
would
do
say
the
some of
shortage?
it. I would say some of it is the same, but I know, but most of the talk is that people don't like getting screamed at as much. I mean, that's some of it, but I don't think that's all of it. I mean, I think it's a combination of reasons with the shortage, whether it's, uh, heard that Ohio is one of the lower paying states, and we don't do it for the pay anyway. I mean, nobody's getting rich off of this, but when you're giving up a Friday night to be with your family, I mean, that's kind of a big deal, especially when you include the pregame. We got to be in the locker room an hour and a half early, the time after the game. That's probably, I'm thinking pay is probably like third or fourth. I honestly, some of it is work ethic, I believe. The one thing though is about officials that most people don't know is that officials are very competitive. You have to be. No one wants to go out there and just mess up. So you're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it to mess up. You're doing it because you're competitive. You're competitive in a different way. You're competitive with yourself. You're competitive to do that high pressure situation to get it right. I mean, that's a lot of the reasons why I officiate still.
Yeah, and that competitiveness doesn't you get it in you probably in high school and whatever sports you do, and it's tough to get it out for some people. I mean that's one of the things that I enjoy about coaching is I still get my heart goes up when they're singing the national anthem, just for the kids. Like
Right.
it's almost a I don't want to say an addiction, but sometimes some of us just need that. Um, so let's start with your wrestling story because that's
My
what we
wrestling
do.
story.
Yeah.
So I say I wrestled when I was in third grade. I remember it was the first year I moved to Fairfield. We used to live in an inner city in Cincinnati, and my parents moved me out to Fairfield, Ohio. And I wrestled in third grade. I actually went undefeated. What's funny about that is I didn't wrestle again, and I was a freshman. My dad was working two jobs and going to school. So between him and my mom, we had to cut back for me doing sports. So I didn't wrestle again until I was a freshman. So I was not some stud wrestler. Absolutely not. I went to a stud school though with legends like Jason Laughlin and such, who was recently the head coach at Fairfield. I think Willie Weinberg got to Fairfield right the year after my sister graduated in
I
'94. Or no,
met
no, he got there in '91. The year after I graduated, Willie Weinberg did.
I
So I
met
went to
him
school
this
with some
summer.
legends. Yes. Oh, okay.
That
Okay.
was my first ever state tournament. So 1994, first ever state tournament. And so just sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, you're
I was
good.
telling him, I went and I thought every year there's going to be a four-time state champion and my high school would win state because they won state for the first time ever in Division three. So I was ruined from there on. I was like, this is awesome. And then the
Right.
next year I'm like, oh, we finished second. But anyhow, Fairfield.
Most clutch wrestler ever, Willie Weinberg. No one can deny that. Clutch.
Yes, he was. So
Absolutely. So
so
that's how I got started with wrestling. So many moons later, I used to play hardcore flag football. And there was a referee named Bobby Sagers Jr., who actually, unfortunately, his father just passed away recently. But Bobby Sagers used to referee the flag football leagues and touch leagues we were in. And he said to me casually, like, man, you should be a ref. You'd be good at it. So I kind of thought about it year after year for football. And I'm thinking, well, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it because I put off for 3 years. So I think I was 29 and I took the football class. And then right after that, I took the basketball and the wrestling class. So I really did football just because Bobby said I would be good at it. But I actually did wrestling because I wanted to do the state tournament. That was my goal, was to be good enough, that competitive spirit, to be good enough to make it to referee the state tournament. That was my motivation for reffing wrestling.
Okay. I'm gonna come back to that. Is it pretty much the same process like to become a football, a basketball, and a wrestling official? Like, is it, classroom learning, then ultimately passing a test, then, being evaluated and working your way up? Are they all pretty similar, or are there any differences?
It's pretty similar as far as getting started. I say the move up process, not necessarily the same. And I remember when I became a football ref, after just doing 2 years, and I was about to you can't do varsity till your third year. So I was about to do varsity, and I actually got contacted by a gentleman that became my white hat head ref for football. And he contacted me, said, hey, I heard you're really good with dealing with coaches. I hadn't heard that about myself. He's like, I'd like you to be a wing official for me. I wanted to be in the middle as an umpire. And I said, sure. So I joined his crew. It was a great decision. And before the first football game, I got approached by an NFL bird dog scout that I remember, Jim Mahan. And he came up to me very bold and brash and said, hey, I'm looking for good young black officials. And I heard that you were a good young black official. I'm like, man, that was real bold, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
He didn't mean anything by it. It was just being transparent. And he's like, so are you interested? I'm like, moving up to college football. And I said, well, yes, of course. So after 1 year of high school football, I literally moved up to Division III college football, which usually do not move up that quick. So the transition in football, you're not really going to move up like that unless someone's in your corner. It's just not going to happen. Wrestling, you got to have people in your corner. Both sports, you got to be really good, though. I think the pressure is not the same because in football, there are so many rules. So between the 5 of us in high school, the 7 of us in college, let's get it right. Wrestling, your assistant, a lot of times just you. You better get it. You better know the rules. You better get it right. You can't jive it. Because I was thinking my first conference tournament I ever refed in wrestling. And I remember I called legal scissors. And I remember coach goes to the table real calm and says, hey, I'm pretty sure that was a draping scissors. And I'm like, no, that was illegal. He goes, no, I'm pretty sure on page 72 of the rule book that was a draping scissors. I'm like, what the heck? He pulled the page out on me. So when that match was done, I went right to the locker room, opened up the rule book, page number. He nailed it, everything. I went back and I said, I apologize. I was wrong, and I will never miss that call again.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And also, I mean, there's so much going on in a football game too, like, holding or whatever. No one can see. They'll even say, they'll scream and say holding. But when it's just 2 competitors and an official, you can see a lot more, and the people are closer to, you know what I mean? So the pressure to get it right, it's a little bit, I don't know. You can see a face mask, right? But holding, you can't see from the stands most of the time.
Well, holding, see, a lot of people don't understand. So the saying holding happens in every play. I mean, it's somewhat true, somewhat not. But if the guy's strong enough to keep his hands inside here and he's holding the guy's jersey, it's not going to get called. Once his arms go out like this, or he takes him down, that's what we're looking for. It's a Friday night, a coach is screaming, holding. I just casually look at him, coach, it wasn't big enough. What do you mean not big enough, coach? Do you want me to call that on your guy? No, go on. You're doing a good job. Keep going. So fans don't see that. They just see the initial scream. They don't know what's being said.
Okay. So that's a good point. I mean, that's probably, I think the lack of knowledge, right? Even on coaches, right? So the coaches are in charge of, or get to coach the kids. But if they don't understand the rules, we can't expect the parents to. Even the parents that have been around for forever think they know the rule book, right?
Don't expect them to. They're all funny to me. Don't really hear them a lot unless I hear something funny. Then I can't help but chuckle. So, and I used to be one of them too. We're biased to our team, biased to what we see. But I will say this. I do believe wrestling fans are more knowledgeable than football fans. I do believe that.
Yeah, because it's more niche, right? I mean, and you spend more time going through, for the most part, I think you spend more time with your parents learning wrestling or talking about it, then you don't come home from football and be like, yeah, we ran a Mudcat 4 today, and that's what I had to pull and hit the linebacker. It just doesn't happen,
I think the big difference between the two is, so in football, I'll think of college football. Actually, college was a lot easier for me to referee in football than high school. There's 7 of us. I was a field judge, which is the gentleman on the home team side, 20 yards down the field. I'm looking at the wing or the wide receiver farthest out. He's my key. If he leaves my zone, then I'm watching my zone. So that's my responsibility. I don't need to watch the lineman for holding. I don't need to watch the other side of the field. The ball goes in the air. Everybody's eyes go to the ball. So that, not saying it's easy, what's actually hard is just the pressure. But wrestling, it's not that simple. Once again, you're the man. You have to know everything that's going on. Football, I can focus on my key. So that's the main difference to me, is that focusing on your key, your vicinity, your responsibilities. Wrestling, the whole thing is your responsibility.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I'm not an official, never pretended to be one, but I didn't understand you break it up, because I sometimes I'm like, how the heck, do you see what's going on? But that makes a lot more sense. You had mentioned, you've been officiating for 20 years. You had mentioned your goal when you started out wrestling was you wanted to officiate the state tournament. Have you accomplished that yet?
I have.
I knew the answer already, by the way.
Yeah. So I believe 5-time state official, I think, in wrestling. I can't remember. Football 4-time. I thought I've done 10 between them. I can't remember. But I've done the team state and the individual state. So definitely that was it's funny because after you do the state the first time, I remember Dick Lowenstein, who's one of our state interpreters, he had said to me, he goes, you'll be surprised at how much you'll want to do it even more and how good you'll get. And it's true. There's a different kind of rush. I mean, doing the state football finals is a rush. It's awesome. I love doing state football. State wrestling, you ask me if I can referee the Super Bowl, if I can referee individual state wrestling tournament, I'm doing the state wrestling tournament.
Really? Why
Absolutely.
is that? Why
Absolutely.
Is that?
The competitive, the pressure, being out there, we know Ohio's one of the best states there are, and you're talking studs out there wrestling their hearts out. 3-2 matches. I mean, I remember there was a kid who's one of the kids projected to win state. I remember him getting beaten in, I think, the first round console match. And he was crying so hard on the side of the mat. And I remember another ref was saying to me, like, gosh, it's not that serious. Why is he so upset? And I'm like, he's a senior and he was a stud. He was projected to win. And this is it. I said, those emotions right there, that was real. And I could feel his pain. I had to go right on the mat and referee, and I could feel his pain, man. There's just something that's just real and genuine about it. Everybody wrestles, everyone knows, but just to be able to be there, the honor, the privilege to be able to be a part of it, it's just amazing. It's surreal.
Yeah, and the pageantry too. I mean, the OHSA does a great job. I mean, I've seen some state tournaments, and right, wrong, or indifferent, but I've seen some high school state tournaments that, the junior high state tournament in Ohio looks, a little more pageantry. Sure. That's the nicest I can put it. So when you get there and you're in the shot, in most years, I mean, even there being as a fan, as you watch the spectators file in and then you see all these nervous wrestlers warming up, sometimes I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it actually right now. So I can't imagine being, having as we say, the best seat in the house there. What are some of your favorite memories? Let's start with the team. So you're talking about state duels, right? The team tournament.
I've done state duels as well. Yes.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite memories from there, or matches that you've got to do? Or just get to watch because you're there officiating?
Well, I've actually, the first round I had a 4-5 match. That was pretty good. The one year I didn't officiate, I think it was when was it St. Ed's when they wrestled Perry. That was pretty exciting. To be honest, a good local duel is every bit as intense as the state team. Actually, I had to go to West Virginia once to do the West Virginia duels. And I had Parkersburg versus Parkersburg South.
Yeah, that area is tough.
They do not like each other. They've been wrestling forever. And, there's all these West Virginia refs. And my friend and I, we went there from Ohio. It's a 3+ hour drive for us. And that final was amazing. But I remember before doing the final, a woman, she had to be close to 90. She came out of the stands and she tapped me on the shoulder. And she says, hey, are you reffing this finals match? I said, as a matter of fact, I am. She goes, I've been coming to every one of these for 50 years. Tapped me on the shoulder and said, don't mess up now.
No pressure.
No pressure. 31-30 upset. Parkersburg South beat Parkersburg. So that was one of the most intense duels I've been a part of. And I would say, gosh, the local ones around here, some of them, they're every bit as good as reffing up at the team state.
Okay. Then let's go to what are some of your favorite memories from the individual state tournament? Some matches maybe you got to watch before you went on the mat, or some that you called, or
Um, I think watching, gosh, a few years ago, I was actually mat side. It wasn't one I was officiating. It was, oh gosh, Donathan from Mason wrestling. I think your surname Bryce from St. Ed was an upset. It was
Bryce
an
Andonian.
amazing match.
Bryce
Yes,
Andonian.
yes, yeah. That finals match a few years ago. It's funny because one of my wife's favorite weekends of the year is a state wrestling tournament. I could see my son at the time, so this is probably about 3 years ago, so he's about 11. I could see him in the stands going berserk when Donathan gets a point in the end. So that match was amazing. There's been a lot of unbelievable moments. My first state finals match, actually, you said memory. Talk about pressure. Matt, I'm on the Division III state final 195-pound match, and the Mat 1 and Mat 2 are done. So I'm the only one being watched. And I can tell you, I can count on one hand how many times I've been nervous in life. State tournament is not one of them. I was not nervous there. But when I looked over, saw the other two matches, and I'm like, oh, great. So everybody's watching my match. So my match went on for about 21, 22 minutes because we had blood time over and over and over. And I believe for the first time ever, somebody went off the stage. The one he was losing 4-2, and he took the guy down, checked him near out of bounds, and then he kicked him over and he flew off the stage on my finals match.
That's way out of bounds because that's big.
Yes. Now it's 4-4. We do the blood. Coach questions me on the takedown. He was respectful. Then we go to overtime, and I believe the kid ended up getting that takedown and winning 6-4. So that was never will forget that.
Okay. That's wow. Yeah, I've never seen anyone go off the stage there. For sure. Oh, wow. 20-minute match. Talking about questionable calls, let me put you on the hot seat. You can plead the fifth here if you want, because this wasn't on the list. But did you watch any wrestling this weekend? Any college wrestling?
I did not, and I'd love to watch the college wrestling and see the questionable calls. So I haven't heard anything, or I didn't see anything.
Well, I want to catch up. I want to follow up with you then, get your opinion on this. But I think it was 165-pound match. So you got Cornell versus Stanford, coaches that coached together last year, coaching against each other, and really nice scramble, out of bounds. And then Griffith, I think it was Shane Griffith, the returning national champ, gets behind both arms, but he's not covering
Stanford.
Yeah, he's behind both. He's in both armpits, but he doesn't cover the hip per se. But because if he did, they would both be completely out of bounds. Like one wrestler's got a hand in, he's got two up here, but it was a no call. But I don't know how you interpret the rules. It's just been all over Twitter.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. Did you say they were neutral or was for a reversal?
It was for a reversal.
And we were near the edge.
Yep.
And he came behind. Both arms were off the mat.
And
he doesn't cover the hip, but we're standing up.
Yeah, he was like on his knees weren't even on the ground. Like he's on his toes. You have to watch it. I'll send it to you because I'm not doing the best job. But that has just been all over social media. And again, it's just interesting to see how easy it is for people to formulate opinions when they're not the ones wearing the stripes and stuff like that. So
I'd like to see it because we're not supposed to call, for example, it sounds a little bit similar, a Merkel situation if we're off the mat as a reversal.
Yeah.
All honesty, I don't know if I agree with that, but that's the rule. And that's the thing too, is even if you don't agree with it, you have to make the call, whatever's supposed to.
Yeah, the Merkel would just be that leg hooked, right? And then
leg hook,
then like hangman kind of headlock on the side.
Yeah. So from the mat, he gets it. If we're not on the mat, he doesn't. And I believe that's the only situation where basically, a takedown and reversal are one and the same. I believe that's the only situation where we're not going to give two reversal unless he gets him down.
Okay. Well,
so it almost sounds a little bit similar what you're saying, not necessarily Merkel, but he's behind both arms, but he wasn't behind him. It sounds. I'm wondering if maybe that's along the lines why he didn't give it, but
I'm kind of look it up. I am too, but you've got your people that got a lot of time to take pictures of rule books and without the interpretation and post it and everything. It's just I'm hyper, I guess, aware of it now, getting to do this and kind of trying to take both sides as a spectator or a fan, and then as a hopefully an advocate of officials. I'm like, this is not helping, like it doesn't help. That's the best way I can put it. So this season looks like, we're going to have a normal season, as normal as we can right now. What are some of the big things you're most excited about for this upcoming 21-22 season?
Well, I actually didn't officiate as much last year. Obviously, everything going on, and I wanted to help a lot of up and coming refs because I signed locally officials. So I backed off last year officiating myself. And it's funny because I ended up doing the team state, not for 2021, but for 2020. I did the team states. I backed off that year as well. And I definitely think that was a mistake because trying to do the team state, and because I'm a reps, and I like doing high pressure duels and such. So since I didn't do it as much, I would say out of all the state tournaments I ref, that was probably the worst one I've had. So I'm looking forward to really getting back in the groove, officiating some hardcore, because I like to do the toughest match possible. Those are the ones I really like to be involved with. So I plan to get back to some of that the best I can, because I have a son who's a freshman who's playing basketball. But definitely looking forward to that. I would say the most.
Do you have any tournaments that you think that there's a potential for some really good matches like that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm not going to travel out of town this year. But the Coaches Classic here locally is the top tournament, which is the third weekend in December. So I'm going to do the Coaches. Yeah, so I'm going to do the Coaches Classic. I don't know who's all in the Mason tournament here. The GMC tournament, sometimes that's basically the GMC and GCL local here are the top conferences. So the GMC tournament, and but with me assigning, I try not to cherry pick. I don't do that. So I actually get some events from other signers. For example, the first 2 weekends are actually not from myself. They're from actually the first 3, including Coaches Classic. I didn't assign those to myself. So they're tournaments that were given to me. I think the Harrison tournament, I'm going to go up to Fairmont where the Division I district is, up at Frank Baxter's Fairmont Firebirds tournament. And then in the Coaches Classic.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about your association and just how your numbers are going there and some of the things that you guys are doing to try to get more officials out?
Yes, we are hurting. There's no doubt. We have the least amount of officials that I've seen since I've been involved. We definitely need to, I think, do a lot better job of recruiting and talking to the younger officials. Most young people, high school, college, don't know if they want to have a decent part-time income while they're in school, officiate. It's a way to make some extra money, to stay connected, to compete. I just really think educating, telling people that, because a lot of it is if we're doing that and we're also taking the young people on our wing, because yeah, there's yelling, there's screaming, but there's really not as much as people think. As long as you're out there and you're not making stuff up, you're hustling, you're working to get better. It's really, I can tell you right now, I referee a lot of big high school football games at schools that have supposedly bad reputations. I very rarely ever get yelled at. I seriously don't think I got yelled at once this year in high profile football games. So wrestling, same way. I very rarely ever get yelled at. One thing I pride myself on is that I make it my mission to not have to point a coach. I actually have never hit a coach for a point in a varsity event. I've warned 4 coaches in 20 years. Some people might not like hearing that because I know some guys do it a lot, but I pride myself in being able to have good enough people skills to talk to this coach and reason together. And I just think that a lot of times people are like, oh, I can't deal with that coach. They're screaming. I don't want to officiate. It's not really as much as people think, long as you're not walking around with a chip on your shoulder yourself.
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit on a couple of things there. And there's exceptions, right? And I don't want to make a blanket statement here, but if I think what I heard is if you're doing your job and you're doing it well enough and people can tell that you know what you're talking about, you tend to have less of the talk, the screaming and yelling at you, right? And
you definitely get less as time goes on because when they get to know you. I mean, obviously I had a little bit more when I was a younger official, but like I said, I mean, as a younger official, I don't put up with coaches being disrespectful, but honestly don't remember a lot of times where they have been. I think it probably helped that I used to coach my son's flag football when he was at 4 years old. And I mean, honestly, I was more intense pretty much than almost every coach I've ever dealt with for 4-year-old flag football.
Yeah.
So I have a long wick, but I tend to be able to figure out we can reason together respectfully. There's times where there's nothing you can do about it. I'm not going to say any names. There's some coaches, though, that are beyond obnoxious, and some referees have quit because of coaches being beyond obnoxious. I had one text me this year asking me a question saying that they have a rep and, well, not as bad as you might think, but I do know a couple coaches have quit because of how you guys have got on them. And he was actually hurt to hear that and asked for their names. I said, I can't do that. He said, well, maybe I can make it right with them someday. And I said, yeah, I mean, if they're willing to talk to you, but just, everything's within balance. I do think that the referees also, I don't want to say have to be thicker skinned, but I mean, definitely it's, this is a tough sport. This is a tough sport. And my philosophy is that when a coach is questioning something, I say, Coach, here's my thing. You can competitively disagree all day long. I have no problem with competitive disagreement. It's disrespectful disagreement is where we have to draw the line.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, something similar to that, one of the last people in this one hasn't gone live yet, but they said, when I go to the table, I don't even talk first. I wait for them to talk, and then I, give my reasoning, right? And if it goes from there, they kind of go the same way. They're going to give them their time, but a lot of times I think sometimes coaches just need to be heard, and then sometimes hear themselves and realize, oh wait, I might be out of my depth here. But unfortunately, when you're not being logical, sometimes you don't realize that too. And I think that's for me personally, that's what I have to when I get to go to these youth sporting events and stuff, because I coach junior high. I try to look for those parents and just remind myself, don't be that person, because especially now, right? But it wouldn't be a very good look if I'm here berating an official, and then I'm like, hey, do you want to be on my podcast next week? So got to keep that in mind too. So back to, your association and the official decline that we have here. I'm hearing, I should say, a lot of the same things from officials. Like, we're trying really hard to recruit, and I believe it, I really do. But is there something different that we're missing, or something, you know what I mean? Or is it just really strange times? Because I kind of believe like there's got to be something else that we can do. Hopefully, talking with officials and getting their stories out there like this will help move the needle a little bit too. But again, with girls wrestling on the rise that it is, we're going to need more officials just to even be able to allow for them to have competition. So I think it's an even bigger problem than most people that aren't officials understand. So what are some things that maybe you do differently, or you would like to see other people try?
Yeah, I'm a believer in adapting and going outside the box, as long as it doesn't compromise my morals. So I think that's where we're at. We've got to go outside the box. So in all honesty, people don't want to work as much. You said, is it strange times? It is. People do not want to work as much, and hopefully it doesn't offend anyone, but when I lived it, where I was just working, we had a day where we had 47 people confirmed to come in for an interview, and 7 showed up. 2 were offered a job to start training the next week, and they did not show up. So we went 0 for 47.
Wow.
So I think strange times, yes. I do think, like, once again, if we're maybe the younger generation, understand that, hey, this is a good way for you to make good part-time income while you're in school. Seriously, let them see that. Have them come out to shadow. But I mean, we have to do something that's different. For example, somehow make it fun. We have to make it fun. But what I was going to say, for example, I look at like my wife, who one of her favorite things to do is to go to the state tournament. She never went to, I think, a wrestling event. She went to high school, one of the best Ohio wrestlers ever in Kyle Ott. She watched me officiate, went to the state tournament, loves to go to the state tournament. Absolutely loves it, loves to watch it. But she cannot watch college wrestling. She cannot watch, and all you college enthusiasts, I'm sorry, and I love college wrestling because I'm a purist, but she cannot watch Riding Time and somebody get on top and stall. And the point I'm making there is that freestyle, for the longest, kept messing with the rules. It was boring. And freestyle is the stuff right now. Yes. I absolutely love freestyle. Freestyle is the mots. It is awesome. So, whatever we have to do for officials, we got to go outside the box. We got to make it fun. I mean, people think, well, how's it fun to go out and get yelled at? Well, one of the reasons that a lot of us still officiate is because it's fun. It's because when we get to go in as a brotherhood, and we get to cut up at our meetings and cut up at the wrestling tournament. And unlike football, it's you're the refs, You're the coaches. Wrestling's not like that. We're at a tournament. Coach is questioning me in the chair. Now we're in the hospitality room, eating at the same table, talking. Now we're back out in the mat. Walter, how the heck can you make that call? We just talked about that over the 2 minutes, And then afterwards, we're all laughing, having a good time. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't see that.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody knows we all know each other by name. It's actually a lot more fun than people think. I think it's just we not present it in a negative light. Because last thing you would think that you would want to do after a long day at work is to go out and officiate a match with a bunch of yelling, screaming people. I actually look at it as a different kind of release. That's totally how I look at it. I'm like, after a long day's work, frustrating day, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm glad I get to go referee tonight and get away from this. That's kind of how I look at it.
That's awesome. Well, it says a lot about your mindset, and we kind of talked about how people's mindsets might be different too. But the thing I like the most about that, and I've seen this firsthand, is the officials and hospitality rooms are just awesome. Amazing stuff happens in hospitality rooms outside of the food, like the friendship, the camaraderie and stuff. And, I don't know how you do this. I'm just spitballing here, but I think that's some of the stuff that maybe more of these young people need to see, or maybe, trying to get people to some of these all-star meets that are thinking about becoming officials, and then maybe get to hang out with the officials that are calling these high profile matches. Or I don't know, there's got to be some ways to expose them to the other side of, outside of the yelling, because for the last 5 years or so, I get to do these OAC tournaments, and in the breaks, that's the best time. I joke with the officials in between matches and stuff, but when you get back there, you really get to see who they are.
You mentioned OAC. Now I will tell you, talk about stuff that chase people out as the youth stuff, because I used to do youth, and whether it's Pee Wee football or youth wrestling, whoa, that in Ohio, obviously great wrestling such, but the parents there can be obnoxious. And I think sometimes young officials, that does frazzle them a little bit, because I love the youth tournaments. Good wrestling, sometimes better technique than what you see in high school. But for example, Mason here locally does a good job in keeping the parents up off the floor.
Yeah, because how their gym's set up.
Yes, yeah, they do. Now, I did have a run-in with a parent one time at the skin check, which was ridiculous. But outside of that, they do a good job, and that right there is important, because that kind of stuff will definitely get. I can tell you, gosh, I can count how many times I've been jazzed real bad by fans, and one of them was at Pee Wee football. And it was the only game my daughter ever came to watch me referee, non-varsity. And her and my son were there on the sideline. I walked off the field, and 2 grannies were standing there, and they're like looking at me like, yeah, we know it's tough. And I'm like, yeah, one of these days I hope to get it. And they're like, yeah, you just keep trying. We know you do better next time. And my daughter's like, why do you tell them you referee the state tournament? I'm like, for what? They're gonna think
What's it going to accomplish?
No matter what.
It's just going to make the conversation longer, right?
Right. So definitely try to protect young officials with you. I learned that the hard way, because I had a preseason, I think an OAC preseason tournament, and I had rookie refs, and I thought it was a beginner tournament, and it was not. So I had a rookie ref here, his first match, and he's got, I think, a state champ and a state runner-up. He's reffing. And I'm confused. Like, I didn't know. I'm like, what is going on? And everyone's like, yeah, these 2 are studs or this and that. And I'm like, what? So I had to jump into the system. His very first match he's ever ref, and he was getting killed.
Yeah.
So those youth events sometimes, that's tougher than JV. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it is. And to your point, and I'm not sure which tournament that was. A lot of the tournaments have the OAC name on them because they're seeding and point tournaments to get you points. So when you get to districts and state.
That's a good point. It wasn't a real OAC.
Yeah, that's because like when we with the OAC, they always pick like Medina's gym, because it's just like Mason's, where you have that, and then the Cavelli. Think about it, and they do a pretty good job keeping the parents. Now, coaches and parents are, you can't really draw that line most places. But could you imagine the Ohio State tournament if all parents were allowed on the floor? It'd just be complete chaos. So right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, actually, now to think about it, those were just youth tournaments, except for Mason's the only one I think I've done the OAC, and they're they're really good at keeping their parents.
Yeah,
Separated.
I've done that one too. Yeah, they do. They get 4 full mats in there, I think, in that gym. Didn't they do like 3 in one?
I think it's no, no, they do. Yeah, you're right. They get 4 full mats.
Because the one mat was like older than me. I remember it was
Mm-hmm.
not fun to roll out.
Yeah.
So so we've talked about this season. We've talked a little bit about the past and stuff like that. But right now, I want to ask. I've asked a lot about the state of officiating and things like that. Are you doing football again next year? Then are you still doing football?
That's funny. The plan is yes. So we had our white hat just retired. So we have kind of a change going on. So I was approached actually to go to another crew, and probably not going to do that. So I figured I would either switch, and I love those guys. I've subbed with them before, and actually I need to talk to Chris. So probably not going to do that, or I could step down, which I really, really thought about doing that, or I could stay on my crew and either we pick up a white hat or I go to white hat. And when I was younger, I wanted to do white hat. I'm so used to being on the wing now. I'm not sure if I want to go to white hat. So right now the answer is yes, but we shall see.
And that'd be a big change then, right? If you're so used to officiating from one spot and then going to the other one, you probably have some rust you have to knock off there. Or I'm
Yes,
making an
because the
assumption.
mechanics. We have the mechanics to make sure that you're lined up the right area. You're looking at the right thing. I mean, a lot of times in football, as a head ref, you have to be disciplined and watch when that quarterback's passing the ball. Your eyes can't leave with the ball. And
Yeah,
so when you're used to 20 years, my eyes leaving going with the ball, you can't mess up. You're gonna miss roughing the passer.
yeah, that's a good point. I would never be able to do that. uh, all right, man. Well, you got anything else for me? I mean, about officiating and why, like, that's the most thing you told us your wrestling story. Why, again, you said it a couple of times, but why should people really not just officiate one sport, but what are the benefits for you officiating too? Do you think one makes you better at the other, or just the time interacting with coaches and stuff? That is that pretty much the same? Can you relate that?
No, that's definitely the same. I used to do volleyball, and it definitely volleyball was really a lot like this. Um, Actually, when I first started, I think I was a better basketball official than I was football and wrestling.
How many years did you do
Uh,
basketball? I know you mentioned that right at the start.
Gosh, I don't know. My wife and I refereed together a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
I think I did basketball probably about 6 years. I think so, something like that. But
So you got 20 in football, 20 in wrestling, and 6 in basketball.
yes, I think so,
That's
something
a
like
full
that. But
45.
wrestling is definitely my favorite to officiate, though. Definitely with between the pressure and just some of the matches over the year and some of the, I've been able to officiate between basketball and wrestling, both or football and wrestling. Some amazing athletes, between uh, Jordan Hicks that plays in the NFL right now. He played Lakota West, or David Taylor, who's just won an Olympic gold. Our families were hardcore David Taylor homers. So just over the years, being able to officiate some of these kids has just been amazing.
Well, let me ask you that then, because now you just mentioned football and the wrestling. Is it? And I've asked this before to other officials when they've mentioned some of the key wrestlers they've got to watch. Like, do you take some pride in that? Is it more fun watching David Taylor? I mean, watching David Taylor win a gold medal anytime would be fun for me as an American. But the fact that I've seen him wrestle when he weighed 90 pounds with 2 rolls of quarters in his socks, to see where he's come. Like, is it more enjoyable for you, or when you see a football player that you've officiated or talked to?
Sometimes, I mean, I think David's a little bit different because my good friend Scott Goodpasser down here, since he fit, he was training him, and I actually used to write a blog back then, and I met David. Actually, my wife was there and my son, and David, such a great kid, great
Yes.
kid. I mean, he's a man now, but great. You hear it all the time. Oh, they're a great kid. No, no, he really is a great kid. And his dad came up to me at the state tournament. Said thank you for the nice things you said about David, whatever. His dad, humble, class act. So they actually had invited me to David's graduation party, and I took my son there. David, just awesome, awesome kid. Just definitely. So with him, definitely a lot of pride because of just getting to share that a little bit. Definitely best wrestler ever officiated. I mean, you got Bo Jordan and those guys. but just a great young man. And then some of the football guys, sometimes you're like, yeah, I reffed him, that's cool. But I think with David, it was a little bit different, just because the thing is that I saw him work his tail off about ready to puke when he's already the most dominant wrestler in the country, and he's going into senior year. And he and my wife is in the fitness world. She actually got more inspired by wrestling when she saw him. She kind of felt bad and kind of didn't, because she knew that's what it took. And I'm like, yeah, he's not just trying to win state. He's trying to do a lot more than that. So he was driving an hour and a half from St. Paris, Graham, to work out with Scott down in Cincinnati, and to drive an hour and a half back when he's already dominant. Yeah, so definitely proud of him. I mean, like, I don't even know him that well, but you feel like you did.
Yeah.
But at the time, no, not as much. But later on, definitely more appreciation to be able to officiate kids like that. And I say him, but then a lot of these kids though, where I might have refed them in, youth wrestling, OAC tournament, and then next thing I know, they're weighing in high school, and I'm like, and you kind of look at me like, hold up, when did you get to be a sophomore in high school?
Yeah.
So a lot of that's surreal.
Yeah, it really is. For me, like I don't know David Taylor as nearly as well as you, but he's an Ohio wrestling boy, even though I know he was born in Wyoming. But like, you know what I mean? Ohio wrestling, I'm like, that's my dude. That's my dude. And then similarly with the workout, like that, for my area, a little bit more like the Stevers. Like they were doing that same thing. They're already beating everyone, tech bomb them and pinning them, but they're still going to get the best training. They're, on the Aerodyne like maniacs. And it's just like, takes a special kind of person. And then to see them reach their goals or some of their goals, it's just like they deserve that. Like you see and hear all that, and it's just good to see good people be rewarded for their work, because that's not always the case.
Yeah. That's what's so amazing about wrestling, because the Steelers were there. I mean, they were there, their parents were there, and they're all like, you could tell it's all real. They're all buds. And I think that's what Steelers only lost in high school was a David. And they're all buds. They're all buds.
Yeah, they all trained a lot with Burnett's, and I'll tell you, some of the athletes that come out of there, it's just amazing. We're fortunate they're only like 20 minutes away from us. One of them, Eric. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time. This has always been fun. You said to be ready for the energy, and you brought it. So thank you for that. I owe you some video of that match I was talking about, so I'll get that to you, and then we'll connect. And hopefully this isn't the last time. We'll get you on the show again, maybe after the season, talk about how the season went, and share some stories. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, hang on. Don't pop off here. I'm going to stop the video and just catch up with you.
All right, sounds good, Bryce. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.